Golair, and welcome to the Loaf of Bread GAA podcast, slicing into the GAA of the past, present and future. Join me, Jason Keelan, as we cut into the largest loaf of bread known to mankind.
Hello, Diegwich, bonjour, ni hao, konnichiwa, guten tag and privyet to you all wherever you're listening in. What started as a message to 10 clubs has now expanded to more than 50 clubs globally from all continents. The journey through Loaf 2 GAA Global continues this week as we move on to our next destination in the GAA world. So come with me on the GAA journey of a lifetime and meet clubs from Canada to Argentina, South Africa to Gibraltar, Bermuda to the North Pole, New Zealand to Kuwait, Knoxville to Qatar, and literally everywhere in between. So grab the passports, grab the bags, it's time to go.
On Slice 45 I chat to Kerry from Ottawa Gaels and with Antrim links, and Dermot from Galway, and find out all about Ottawa Gaels GAA and the Canadian GAA as a county board. I find out all about the club's origins, Kerry's Cushendall and Antrim days, the East Canada GAA scene with Montreal, Quebec, Toronto, Prince Edward Island and others, the visit of the great Joe McDonagh to Ottawa, playing the great St Mike's teams, the World Games 2023, Aussie John in Quebec, and an incredible story about club stalwart Breda, who played and won a final all while going through cancer treatment, a truly inspirational tale. And of course, Kerry and Dermot take on the quickfire questions with some very Canadian versus Ireland dilemmas. But first, as always, let's take a trip back to Canada and find out all about Ottawa Gaels and the Canadian GAA. Bon Sultas. Welcome to Canada. Or should I say, welcome back to Canada, since not that long ago I had the pleasure of meeting Fermanagh goalkeeper Patrick Quayle and the St Finian's Vancouver GAA club out west. Today, we're on the eastern side, and in the city of Ottawa, the Canadian capital, in the province of Ontario. Ottawa Valley as a region appeared when the Champlain Sea disappeared, paving the way for human development to progress. The original people in the area had relied on fishing and hunting very heavily. The indigenous people of the time were the Ottawa and Ojibwe groups, who had named the area Kichisibi, Grand River. It was European Etienne Brule who is said to have been the first to explore the region during his ventures around the Great Lakes. Over time, more and more settlers arrived from Europe, and early maps from the indigenous people noted the word Adawe, meaning trade. It was in 1800 the first major settlement appeared, founded by Philemon Wright, a New England resident. In 1826, the area of Bytown was created, the original name of Ottawa. As the town progressed, it had a lower and upper part of town, similar to Canada at the time being upper and lower. Upper town was mostly Protestant, while lower was full of French and Irish immigrants. Ottawa would become a vital town for many reasons: defence, transport, access to areas like Montreal, Toronto and Quebec, and the fact the government already owned much of the land in the area, so designing their parliament building was ideal. In the 1850s, the lumber industry grew to become the biggest in the world. In 1900, about 1/5 of the city was destroyed by fire, not just a common theme in the US. Over the next century, the city saw a slow growth, followed by issues caused by world wars, but came through the other end with a large building boom, which was brought about by the growing tech industry in the area. Today, the majority of landmarks and sites for tourists revolve around some of the government-designed buildings, canal and river tours, and galleries. Some of the famous names from the city include musicians Alanis Morissette, who you're listening to in the background, and Paul Anka, writer Margaret Atwood, the Trudeau family line, comedians Tom Green and Dan Aykroyd, actress Alicia Cuthbert, Arcade Fire members Rick Parry and Jeremy Gara, and one well-known actress.
I mean, this car has totally maxed out my credit, but my self-esteem's been so low lately that I think it's worth it. Don't you?
Yes, it is, of course, Sarah Chalke, famous for playing, among other roles, the great Dr. Elliot Reed in the TV show Scrubs, which turned 20 in 2021. The 4 professional teams in the city are the NHL side Ottawa Senators, Canadian Football League side the Red Blacks, Canadian basketball side Ottawa Champions, and the Canadian Premier League soccer side Atletico Ottawa. Canada GAA was founded in 1987 and today has more than 20 clubs across the country's 5 time zones, from Vancouver in the west to Prince Edward Island in the east and all in between. In recent times, the Eastern Canada Division was formed, and as a result a new Eastern Championship was created. But I'll let you find out more about that as we meet Kerry and Dermot and find out all about Ottawa Gaels GAA and the Canadian GAA County Board. Kerry, can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Could have been my laptop. How are you guys? You well?
Yeah, grand now. And yourself?
Oh, very good, yes. They have maroon and white tops, is it, for Ottawa Gaels?
Ottawa Gaels are maroon and white, like Gallios.
Yeah.
Like Westmeath, more than likely.
Oh, well, I don't know about that now. Although Westmeath as well, yeah. Westmeath do have the maroon and white.
Are you a Galway man, Dermot? Or?
Yes, yeah, Galway City.
Oh, yeah, very good, yes. And what's your own GA background then?
So I grew up in Galway City. St. Michael's would be my club, so it'd be in Newcastle area, Galway, just by the university hospital there. So I started playing at school, St. Pat's National School in Galway, and one of the trainers from St. Michael's came in one of the days, Pat Walsh, and said, any lads around Newcastle and Shantla, we'll have a game. I think it was the next day, and he brought a few of us up and we started playing. I think it was about 9 or 10 at the time, and from then on I was hooked. So that's it. Played with Michaels all the way up. And
any familiar names on the team that you were playing with?
Not that I played with, no. But the club would have had a couple of county players over the years. So Eddie Hoare would have played the last number of years, and then currently you'd have Eamon Brannigan.
Oh yeah.
Who'd be playing, and then John Hanbury won All Ireland with Galway hurlers. So John plays hurling with Rahul Newcastle, but he plays football with St. Michael's there. So so we've had a few lads. Alan Glynn is the minor manager this year. So Alan would have played with Michael's, would have actually played senior county as well. When I was home there, I was home for a few weeks, end of July, early August, and Alan would be a year or two younger than me, so Alan actually took us for a couple of training sessions and played a bit. It's a good crew, good club there in Galway City. So
yeah, well-renowned club as well. They have plenty of strong names behind you, all right. The maroon and white, is that a Galway choice, or is it just something else?
Oh, one of the founders is a Galway man as well, actually, Pat Kelly. So he's from Ballygar in County Galway.
Oh no way! I've one of my oldest college mates is a Ballygar woman.
Oh really? Huh? Yeah, small world. So Pat is a Galwegian, and Kerry will probably chat a bit about Breda. Breda is one of Pat's cousins, Breda Kelly, also from around there. Got the ladies team going. So I think that there's been a few different colours over the years, but we've always had a fair Galway influence. So I think maroon has been the colour the last 15, 20 years anyway.
That's good. I don't mind. I was born in Ballinasloe, so I can.
Oh, good man. Okay, that's grand. Yeah.
It just happened to be the hospital at the time. Apparently, my mother says so. That's why I wasn't born in Mullingar.
Oh, is that it? Yeah.
I can't claim to be half Galway. When Westmeath are knocked out, it's easy to cheer for Galway instead. You know, the colours match and everything.
There you go. Colours match. Yeah, you don't have to go buy new flags or jerseys. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. And Kerry, you're welcome. What's your background then? Are you originally from Ottawa?
No, a long way around to Ottawa. I was born in Australia, but to parents from Antrim. And when I was 4, we moved, I say back to, but my parents moved back, but we moved to Ballymena when I was 4. So went to school there, but didn't stay long. It was the mid-70s, and the troubles were, what they were. And so they thought, maybe we'll move on, and Canada's a bit closer than Australia, so we'll go there. So, which is true. So when I was 5, we moved to Canada. So I used to have a very different accent, but basically, when you move and you're young and you want to fit in, so you change your accent. So yeah, that was my long way around. So then grew up in Calgary really from age 5, and moved out to Ottawa in 1997. So almost 25 years my husband was here. And I always played soccer all my life, and that was my main sport, and played at university and all that. And so first thing I did here, I only knew one person in Ottawa, so I joined a soccer team. And Breda Kelly, as Dermot has mentioned, Breda was on my soccer team, and she heard my name. My maiden name is Macaulay, so she said, "Kerry Macaulay, you must be Irish." Oh yeah, and she goes, "Well, you got to come try Gaelic." I was like, oh, well, okay, sure. She goes, you'll love it. So anyway, she was right. So I didn't start playing until I was about 28 or 29. And I was hooked from the beginning. So, started because I loved the sport, and then have been around over 20 years now because of, the club and the community and the friendships that you make.
Yeah. Who was your soccer team of choice out of interest?
Oh, you mean here, or you mean?
Or just in would you supported a team growing up?
Well, probably Manchester United, because my brother did. So yeah.
Ooh,
yeah. There's a Liverpool fan down the bottom, probably, is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't be a huge soccer fan now, but yeah, growing up, I would have been Liverpool.
All right. Well, it's good talking to you, Dermot. Anyway, thanks for coming.
We'll end it there. We'll end it. You and Kerry from here on.
There, so,
to the Man United fans.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And Dermot, I meant to ask as well, what brought you over to the Canadian shores?
It would have been a woman. So I met a French Canadian woman. I was over here. I had a student work visa back in 99, 2000. So I was here for about a year. So I was in Toronto for a few months, and then I ended up out in the Rockies for about 4 or 5 months. And I met Emily, who's my now wife. We were out in Jasper. We worked a bit together, traveled. So she came back to Galway for a summer. And then I came back here for another winter, and then moved to Dublin, did my teaching degree up in Dublin. And Emily came for a couple of years. So when I graduated in 2005, I moved over here. So
very good.
So I've been here ever since.
Secondary year?
So trained as a secondary teacher, and I was in the high school for about 4 years, and then 2010, 11 moved into the primary. So the last 10 years on and off, I've been in the primary system. Yeah. So
would you prefer it as a secondary year?
There's good and bad in both. I miss the bit of banter with the older kids, and I used to teach English, so loved the bit of literature. I don't miss the correcting, but I do miss the bit of banter. But with the younger ones, you kind of have a bit of fun. I do phys ed, and I do a bit of outdoor education with them. We have a bike program, a scooter program, and we do skateboarding in the winter. There's snowshoeing and skating and a bit of skiing. So I get to be outdoors most of the day, and just even working with the little kindergarten, little 5-year-olds, and they're scooting around. They're having a great time. So you have a bit of fun with them, which is nice.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm primary school, but 4th, 5th, and 6th class, grand. I'll stay up there.
Some of the older ones.
Yeah. The small ones frighten me a little bit. Sometimes frighten me a little bit, yeah. Kerry, tell us a bit about Ottawa Gaels then, because there's probably some people who will be familiar with them, but like most clubs I've chatted to, most of the messages I get are, I did not know there was a GAA club in this part of the world. So what's the club's history? Yeah,
I mean, I came to it sort of in 2000, and at that point, sort of, I'll kind of focus on the women's program. Dermot can talk about the men's, but so the club was established in 1975, but then it was, one of the founders was Pat Kelly, and his cousin ended up in Ottawa in kind of the mid to late 80s. And so in 1988, there was a men's team already, but she was playing with the men, and she said, forget this, we need a ladies team. And so she really was the driving force behind it, and got the team going. And, they from the very beginning participated in the Toronto League. The Toronto Ladies League only started in 1998 as well. So we played in the league, which is, I mean, this is kind of a bit of, if you're going to be an Ottawa Gael, you got to be traveling down to Toronto. It's a 4.5-hour drive each way. Wow. And if I wonder, Dermot, if we actually all added up the kilometers we've had on the 401.
That's quite a few there, right?
What it would add up to, because between the league and championship, it's several trips down to Toronto each year. And I mean, this was happening when Pat started the club in 75, and has gone through. And so they played in the Toronto League. There was only 2 or 3 ladies teams, didn't really have any wins for quite a few years, but then sort of turned things on. And Ottawa is a city where we don't have a large Irish population. So it was all Canadians, bar Breda, who was the only Irish person, but she never played Gaelic. Okay. So she played camogie, but so they, most of them hadn't even heard of the sport. And the only Irish person was Breda anyway. So they got it going, didn't have many wins for a while, but then really, turned things on in sort of the late 99, won the championship in Toronto, and then went, several years winning the league and championship all the way up through like back to back to back. up until 2008 probably would be the last year we had the double win, and then and since that time, then the Toronto League and ladies football in general has really exploded and grown, and so a huge population coming into Toronto and really growing the ladies game. So several clubs there, several teams, and then 2008 was the financial crisis, so there was a lot of immigration. A lot of people left, and that really benefited Toronto. And Vancouver's really exploding recently, but Toronto especially. So they had really significant growth in those years. And so you've got county players coming over. You've got ladies that have played from youth, and we were a bunch of Canadians, athletic women, but were new, fairly new to the sport. And so so we haven't had as many wins in the recent years, but then there's been growth, in the Eastern Division, which I can talk about later.
Does the club focus mainly? Is it dual code? Is it football, hurling, camogie? Do you play a bit of everything?
Well, ladies and men's football. And then actually last year we added camogie, but I'll talk about that after. Maybe Dermot can talk about the start in the men's program.
Yeah, what's the men's side like, Dermot?
So just echoing along what Kerry is saying there, the club started in 75. I think the first official meeting might have been the autumn of 74, but officially 75. We had our 40th anniversary there back in 2015, and Joe McDonagh made it over, God rest him. So nice to have another Galwegian. He passed away sadly the following spring, but it was lovely to have him over, and we had a couple of different events, and Joe was there, and as you know yourself, like, he was key in developing the overseas side of the GAA and just recognizing it, having the support there. So I think the Gaels have benefited from that. Kerry would attest to that as well over the last 10, 15 years, just the funding from the GAA and also from the Department of Foreign Affairs. But going back to the mid-70s, Pat Kelly, mentioned him earlier from Ballygar. He moved up. He'd been playing in Toronto with St. Vincent's and moved up to Ottawa with work, and got a few lads together. And there was people like Pat Scott. I think John Keenan had been involved, Larry Bradley. So some of the stalwarts from the beginning were there and got the club going. And playing in the Toronto League, going around knocking on doors on a Sunday morning for the 4.5, 5 hour drive down to Toronto, and some in better shape than others. But they did that for a number of years, and some years, again, as Kerry mentioned, a lot of Canadians playing. In Ottawa, we don't tend to get the same numbers of Irish as they would have in Toronto, for example, or in Montreal, or now like even in Vancouver. So there's always been a strong Canadian element because we've had to have that. You'd always have a few Irish as well. And I think, the Gaels have always been, I moved over in 05, so I'm about 16 years now. And so from my experience playing, I'm sure Kerry can attest to this as well. The Gaels are always kind of a bit of the black sheep of the Toronto League because all the teams would be down there. Okay. And some of them it would come up and play against the Gaels up here, be a bit of a weekend away. But there'd be a lot that, Ottawa, they're over there. They're kind of a way out on the side. And, you get a good bunch, you get a good team together. And as Kerry said, the women dominated for a number of years down there. The men never really got to that level, though. I think there was the league was one in the mid-90s, which was a great achievement with a mainly Canadian team. Like Kerry was saying there, a lot of the women are very athletic, play different sports. It was the same with the men. Like Pat would get lads who were hockey players, or they played Canadian football, or they played lacrosse. So they would be athletic, they'd be strong, they'd be well able to get stuck in. And you might have one or two Irish players then to kind of supplement it. And so that's it. When I moved over in 05, I didn't even know there was a team. It was my wife, actually, Emily, who kind of got in touch, and I got out and played a few games, and I just remember the heat was phenomenal. The first day, I think it was like 30 degrees, and I almost died. But we played in the Toronto League. We got to the championship final in 06 and 08, and so we were narrowly beaten by St. Mike's, would be one of the top teams down there. So it was unfortunate, but like 5 hours down in the morning, we leave, 6:30 or 7 in the morning on a bus. You get down around 12, you try and stretch out the legs, and you play a few hours later. And then, usually the long drive home, then the ladies would sometimes have some success, which was, I'm sure, it made the long drive home a little bit more bearable. But I remember being a bit sore on the bus up to 401 on the way back. But yes, we played in the Toronto League till about 2010, I think was the last season. And Kerry mentioned there the financial crash in Ireland and the implications that had. we also kind of have gone through some ups and downs. So when I moved over here, Noel McGinnis from Monaghan was running the club, the men's side of it, coaching and managing, and I kind of took over, within the first year or so. After that, I kind of took on the role of player, manager, coach, and kind of kept it going for a while. But then, we had families. I have two. I think one of the lads walking up the stairs behind me, Mihal is 9 and Wilfred is 12. So, we just had different things going on. And so the club, there was no one really to take it on. Noel did a little bit. Jarlath Connaughton as well from Dublin had helped out. Jarlath passed away in June, unfortunately, there, but he'd been a huge influence with the women's team over the years, with the youths, with the men. And so for a couple of years, it was kind of dormant, and we got it going again then. In 2014, I would say things got going, and there's an Eastern division, which Kerry may talk a little bit more about. But rather than going down to Toronto, we now are more aligned with teams like Montreal, the Shamrocks in Montreal, who have a very long history as well. Quebec Patriots, who would be a more recent club. PEI, who were again in the last decade. PEI Celts and Halifax Gaels. So we would get together for tournaments a few times during the year. So Montreal would host a tournament every May. Quebec sometimes would have one in around August, and then there would be a championship. And each year the championship's in a different place. So you might have a 5-hour drive up to Quebec, you might have a 2-hour drive to Montreal, or you might have the 17-hour drive over to PEI or Halifax. And so so that's been good. It's been good for development. Here in Ottawa, again, you'd have a handful of Irish, but again, we have a lot of the men would also be Canadian, or we have Cyril, who's from France, or we have Luca, Italian. So it's very multicultural.
I was going to ask, what kind of nationalities have you got? Yeah,
which is a good mix. So we won in the Eastern Championship in 2016, which was very exciting for us. And in recent years, then Montreal have done very well. They've got a very well organized setup up there, but they also do have a lot of Irish have ended up in Montreal. So a little bit. A little bit hard to compete, but things are going well. The lads were up in Quebec City 2 weeks ago for a tournament, and that was the first bit of football in 2 years. Just with COVID, there was no games last year, so I know the lads. I didn't make it up myself, but the lads were delighted. They had a few games, a couple of wins, a couple of losses, but just happy to be out playing. We started the fall league on Sunday night under the lights, so we had a Monaghan team with Noel, and then a Cork team. So we had the Reds and the Whites, and so just good crack. So things are going well. One of the great things is just the youth coming through. So Kerry might mention the youth in a little while, but even her son Ryan, who when I first started with the club, or going back 10 years, I was involved with the youth as well, and the CYC, which is the Continental Youth Championships, and the Gaels have always been great at bringing teams down. And I remember Ryan, I think maybe his first one, he was 7 or 8.
Yep.
And he's been out this summer, and he's been playing with the men, and he's 6'1". He's over me, and it's so great to see him and some of his buddies that I would have coached when they were just little lads, and now they're kind of the next generation coming through, and they're
put them in midfield. So
they're giving older. They'll give older lads like me a bit of a break. So anyway, so there's that kind of community like Kerry alluded to. So we have the younger players coming up, and people like Noel as well. His son is playing as well. His son Owen is playing, and so there's that kind of a family community feel that you get in a lot of the clubs back home. So
that's brilliant.
We had to create our retirement plan. We had to actually have kids so we could retire.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. I should probably mention, just for people who are listening who mightn't be familiar, but PEI, I presume, is Prince Edward Island, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because there'd be people who'd be going, "Where the feck is PEI?"
Where is PEI? Yeah. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah, you were saying you guys playing under the lights. That's not a phrase that I've heard in any of the chats with any club so far, because most of the facilities and grounds we need to book a pitch 6 months in advance. We can't find a park. We've had to move animals to play a bit of football or a bit of hurling or camogie. So have you guys got facilities you can actually call your own?
Not necessarily, no. There is a partnership with Twin Elm Rugby Club, so we'd have a lot of our events. Like we had a friendly tournament there, an inter-club tournament a few weeks ago. So Twin Elm would be the main rugby park in Ottawa, and so we've had a partnership with them where we can use their fields, and we've kind of helped a bit with the upkeep of the fields and things like that. So we have had some tournaments. I know the ladies train out there, and they've been doing their camogie out there, and there's a clubhouse and things like that. But yeah, just on Sunday, for example, it's just a city field that one of the lads was able to book. So we've been having our trainings there during the summer, and they were able to kind of get it through to the end of October, and they put the lights on. So yeah, not always easy to get fields,
Yeah.
but generally we've been able to get them, and this partnership with Twin Elm hopefully might be something that can grow in the years to come. So we can get, we don't necessarily have the solid Gaelic goals
Yeah.
per se, the rugby goals with the it's American football kind of goals at the bottom and the top. But yeah, at our pitch at the school I teach at, which is purely a Trudeau Elementary School, we did put in the Gaelic goals about 10 years ago. So we've trained there. It wouldn't be a regulation size. It'd be good for a 7 to 9 a side. But just with the dimensions, it's not great. So we have trained there, but there's going to be some building at the school now in the next year or so. So that's kind of where we've moved to other places the last few years. So
okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good, Jet. And what are the numbers, Kerry, on the ladies' side like in modern times today?
Yeah, I mean, we probably have around. It varies, and some of our youth are coming through, so some will come and train with us, and but we might have 20 out for a training session. I actually couldn't make it to Quebec City for the recent tournament, the one that we played. So, but I think we ended up, it was a 9-a-side tournament. So we were able to fill that panel, and so it's growing. And then it's really great to see the youth coming through. So these, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls are coming through and coming out to training as well. So
how do you find the fundraising side of things? Because it varies hugely from clubs who've no money to clubs who beg for money to clubs who, well, one club I've met in Europe who are so well funded, they say they've more money than the Dublin GAA team have here. So where do you stand on it?
Well, we're not there, but somewhere in between, I'd say. I mean, we've the Heart and Crown that you'll see on our jerseys here, there. So, our local and our main supporter, Pat Kelly is an owner of that establishment with a partner, and Bradley Kelly, Larry Bradley. And so they've been a great supporter for us, over the years. And so we'll, put sponsorship packages together and go out to sponsors and try and get them to, we have also a golf tournament that brings in a lot. So each hole has a sponsorship, and then people pay to play. So, and that one's really dedicated to our youth program. And the fundraising from that is, help support the trip to, wherever the Continental Youth Championship is. It'll help support that, help support the youth program. It's dedicated to that. And so, yeah, I mean, just sort of the typical stuff. We have done a raffle where we raffled tickets, airline tickets. So that brings in a lot. You get a lottery license, and, so we've done ones like that. Nothing like a lotto at home each week. It's just not, it's just not something. You wouldn't ever have anybody in this shop selling it for you like they would. It's just not possible here. So yeah,
that's pretty good. Yeah. On the ladies' side, then, is there any recent standout, memorable victories or moments that you think, oh yeah, this is a highlight?
It sort of feels like, because we haven't played for so long, it's hard to sort of think about it. But I guess in 2017, I was the chairperson of the club, and we hosted it was 150th anniversary. I can't remember. Anyway, and so we hosted the Eastern Championships here. And so, it was great to have all the clubs come in and have that camaraderie. We held it out at the rugby club, and, a nice banquet after, and, just getting everybody together and seeing the growth in this Eastern division, because we've always been making back and forth, but it's growing this Eastern division. There was no ladies football other than the Ottawa Gaels up until I think 2014. A couple of our ladies traveled, and they just were a couple of ladies around. There was no proper game. So it wasn't until 2015, 2016 that actual Montreal had a ladies team at that point. And then Halifax was able to bring a ladies team, and so it started to really grow. And so 2017, it really felt like, we had a full panel of ladies playing at there, and it's just kind of, keep it on going.
Yeah, that's good. Is there, because a couple of hours ago, I think I've uncovered the most bitter outside of Ireland rivalry between two clubs, but who would be Ottawa Gaels' sort of main general rival, especially for people who don't know the Eastern Division very well, even on the men's or the ladies' side?
I'd say in recent years it would be Montreal for the ladies, and Dermot can speak to the men's. But so we've had our team many years, and Montreal's really been building and building, and they have an internal league, interclub league that's really helped bring in a lot of players and built up. So, and to the point that Montreal ladies were absolutely focused on beating Ottawa. They even had a hashtag in their WhatsApp group, hashtag beat Ottawa. So they were completely focused on beating us. So it did happen recently. So, good for them. Right. And everybody needs competition to get better. And so, we welcome it, and it'll bring us to a better level, as well as we kind of, we've had some people retiring and long-term people that, aren't playing anymore. And so we've lost a few strong players. And so we have to rebuild and fill in with these youth coming up as well.
Super, yeah. And what about for the men, Dermot? Is it Montreal as well, or have you pinpointed somebody else?
Yeah, well, when I first came, it would have been St. Mike's, like they bet us in 2006 and 2008. 2008, they were well worth it. 2006, even the men on the hill, like there'd be usually a couple of hundred at it. And, you'd hate to blame the ref, but even the neutrals were saying it was daylight robbery. So, no, they were a good side, but we definitely, we felt aggrieved that day and disappointed. But we would have got one over on them in the league. I think we came out the better side about 2 or 3 times between 05 and 10. So, they certainly didn't have it all their own way. But yeah, just in the finals, that would have kind of stung a bit. We did dump them out in the Power Screen Sevens. It was a 7-a-side tournament back in the mid-2000s. It was a gold medal tournament. And you'd have teams over from Ireland. You'd have, I think the first one, I was at a couple of them. You had Man o' War from Dublin. You had Elfin from Roscommon. Even from Galway at Barna. I knew actually 1 or 2 of the Barna lads that were playing over it. Some Armagh, I think St. Pat's up in Armagh, the school team who would have been very good were over.
That's right.
But I mean, Mike said you'd always play the round robin, the qualifying on Saturday, and then you'd have the semi-final and the final on the Sunday. And we went down a bit of a ragtag bunch, and we lost most of our games, and we finished at the bottom of our pool, and Mike's were at the top of theirs, and so we played, and we managed to get them to extra time, and we beat them in extra time. And so that was just being a spoiler was a lot of fun. And the next day, then the Sunday, we played against one of the Irish teams. I think it might have been Elfin, and they beat us by a few points. But that stands out as a memorable moment. When
never lose to a Roscommon team, though.
Well, there you go. That was the hard part of it. Beating Mike's was nice. And Ian Lazenby, one of our lads, was involved. Kerry probably knows Ian was involved in a little bit of verbals and a little bit of with one of their boys, and they got sent off, but they were both back in then for the extra time. But yeah, in more recent years, it would be Montreal. I mentioned earlier, we won in 2016 in the championship, and then since then, the 3 subsequent ones, Montreal beat us. We hosted in 2017, as Kerry mentioned, and they had a very good side that year. 2018 out in PI, they beat Quebec. They'd beaten us in the semis, and then the last championship, 2019, they bet us by a point up in Montreal. So that was a tough one. We had one of our lads was black carded in the first half, and then it was a bit of an uphill battle, but it was a good game. So yeah, Montreal are definitely, they're quite strong. As Kerry mentioned, hats off to them. They've really worked on their development with their ladies. Their men's program is very strong too. They do have a strong Irish contingent, but they also have a few Canadians too. They have a kind of an inter-club league that they've running. So they have a couple of lads that play Aussie rules. They have a couple of strong Canadians. So yeah, so that's a pretty friendly rivalry. And it's something we look forward to hopefully maybe next year having a championship, and we'll have a little go with them. But even Quebec, who are predominantly French Canadian, they're nearly all Quebecois lads. There's maybe one Irish fella in there, and there might be one Aussie. Actually, whenever they get together, there's Aussie John, who's about 70 at this stage, and he's been around since they started up, and he's still, when we play friendly games, he'll still lace up the boots, and he's a great character. But you know what? It's wonderful to see that, and I'm sure when you've chatted to other clubs around the world, my wife is French Canadian, is Quebecois as well, and she's come out and played over the years with the ladies here in Ottawa. But when you see a team that's talking to each other in French, and they're all into it, they love this game. A lot of them would never have seen it up until the last year or two, but they've embraced it. They found a game that they love, and that's they're great fun. A bunch of them were down here for a friendly tournament we had a few weeks ago, and they're coming on in leaps and bounds. So Quebec are definitely a club and a team on the up as well, just with their organization, with the women's team and the men as well. So that's it. You want to have teams like that. You want to have healthy competition, healthy teams. So it's good for everybody,
Yeah. Is the sport in general, the GAA? I'm just thinking, since there's a few countries, where it's a very predominant sport, and particularly you guys being the home of like ice hockey, essentially. I know there's ice hockey, hurling, links, and origins and all that, but
Mm.
is the GA a tricky sell to kids who grow up seeing, some of the great ice hockey players of all time on their screens all the time, and you're trying to get them to play this game, which, I think Jason Statham in a movie once said it was like hurling is like a cross between something like ice hockey and murder or something like that. So is it a hard sell to get them into the GA?
It's just an awareness issue.
Okay.
And then we're competing with, predominance of other sports. So, we're really a recreational sport. And so kids that are doing competitive hockey, competitive soccer, whatever competitive sports, they're, if you're doing competitive soccer, you're 4, 5, 6 times a week doing that. So the tough thing is to get those kids to come out, once a week or twice a week for kind of, rec, like it's a recreational sport. I mean, we still always want to have games and have tournaments and things for them to go to. So it's just awareness. But once, kids come out, or kids that maybe aren't, full-time in some other sport, they love it and they'll stay. And it's such a great, and teachers love the sport too, and so taking into the schools, we have had over the years, like dating back to 2014, we probably started a project where we brought over a coach that would go into the schools and then coach at the schools, and then we would run sort of a rec house league for the kids, because to get them into the club. And then we had 2 coaches coming over in 2015 and 2016, and so they were in the schools teaching hundreds of thousands, thousands of kids over the term of the project. And then teachers have always been a really great advocate for the games, because they're so, the kids start out evenly, because most kids don't know the sport, but there's so many crossover skills and fundamental movements from every other sport. So, but they are starting at the same place, and so it's good. So we've had a lot of teachers in our club that have done a lot for promoting it in the school systems, and they, in the grade 7 and 8, so say 13 and 14-year-olds, they had, quite a large tournament where they'd have, 400 boys on one day and, 400 girls on the next day, and run, about, I don't know, Dermot, how many schools there would be involved, like maybe 6 or 8 schools, the school teams playing each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 8 to 10, depending on the year. So
Well,
that's phenomenal. Yeah, so I've been out reffing at that, and that's just something to behold as well. And like Kerry alluded to, you've got these athletes, so there could be basketball. You can tell some schools are really good basketball because they're great at catching, and you have others, it's a soccer school, so they're really good at kicking the ball, and then they try to put it all together. So yeah, it's brilliant to see, and actually some of our players have come to us through there. You think of someone like Lisa Wright, who's with the club now and on the executive, and is on the Canadian GAA executive, and she's played at the CYC, and she's played with the women. She was part of the World Games team in 2016, and then on the men's side, someone like Jonathan Lajeunesse as well, and Johnny started at school. And so when you see players like start as teenagers and coming all the way up, and now they're into their late 20s, almost the 30s, and they're still playing, and they love the sport. So, and that they're continuing it on, they're passing on that passion for the game,
And if it's the kind of sell to the younger kids, how hard is it to sell the likes of the Sunday game on the TV to the adults?
You'd be, surprisingly enough now, even with on the men's WhatsApp, a lot of the lads would have the GAA Go, and they'd watch it, they'd watch it weekly. So, the likes of Noel from Monaghan, or even David Bamji, who's only, come to the club a few years ago, but he's got Dublin roots, and he'd be looking at all the games. And you have 1 or 2 lads, but, someone like Jamie Kennedy now, who's kind of coaching the men, he'd be a local teacher, going back to what Kerry is mentioning. We have a lot of teachers like the likes of Kerry Beeching and the Drapers, Shannon and Jody, just Joe Diffie people over the years. But Jamie did a Gaelic kind of coaching course, I think through phys ed, through PE, and he got to know about the Gaels, and that's about 4 or 5 years ago now, and just loves it. And he's taken over the coaching of the team there in the last year or 2 from myself, and he'll watch the games every weekend. And he's got the 2 young lads as well. I know Ernie is big into it. He's 9 and loves watching it. So they'll watch the football, they'll watch the bit of hurling. So I think, there's definitely, I think Canadians in general are quite athletic. They like to be outdoors. I think just given the climate, in the winter, you have the bit of skiing or the skating, and all that kind of thing. And then in the summer, you want to be outside, you want to be playing sports, whether it's baseball or, soccer is huge over here now. And I think Gaelic, brings something different that does appeal to people. And I think a lot of the times there's very few people I've come across that try it and say, oh, yeah, that's definitely not for me. I'm sure it does happen, but oftentimes, oh, yeah, this is great because it's basketball, it's volleyball, it's soccer, and there's a bit of physicality. It's not as rough as rugby or Aussie rules, but you could still, throw a shoulder into someone, and so it's definitely not a hard sell. I would say once it's getting people out. I think, as Kerry mentioned, people can be busy, they've lots going on. So, but once you can expose someone to the sport, they're generally like, wow, this is a great sport,
Is every Canadian without a county automatically forced to support Galway then, is it?
That would be the hope, but you've got competing interests.
Depends who they talk to first. If they talk to Noel first, it's Monaghan. They talk to me, it's Antrim. Whoever gets them in.
Yep, that sounds good. Yeah, what's a good celebration night out with the gang like?
Oh, well, it's always good. I mean, often it'll start at the Heart and Crown. It'll start and probably finish as well. As you might go somewhere else in between, but often, you just sort of park yourself there and that'll be that. There was some years of, the 12 pubs of Christmas, but it was when my kids were young, so I wasn't doing any of that, but
yeah, that sounds good. You yourself, Kerry, ended up am I right, part of the Canadian GAA sort of county board as well, is that right? Are you on that?
Yeah. So in the last 3 years, so I've been quite involved in the club, volunteering at a club level and in different roles, and then started as a treasurer with Canada GAA 3 years and kind of really gotten a crash course in, the GAA across Canada, which has been interesting. So I've learned a lot about sort of what's happening in the different regions and how different it is, and different challenges and different opportunities, depending on where you are in the country.
And what's your relationship with, because I know I've some idea how big Canada actually is when I've only been to Vancouver and Vancouver Island and then up to, the state of Alaska in America, like that side of the world. I've not been to your side at all, but what's the relationship with the West and Central Canada like, given the insane distance that Irish people probably have no idea how big it is till you get there?
Really. Yeah, I mean, it's really good. And it's just like, the Canada board, and we have, divisional representatives on the management committee. And so we stay really engaged, with the different clubs and divisions and what their challenge. Like Vancouver right now is just exploding in growth. There's a ton of immigration to Vancouver. It's gone from, 1-2 clubs to, 6 or 7 now. And so, so much so that they're really, at the point now running a league that's similar to what Toronto's doing. So a league and a championship, they have enough clubs to be able to do that. So, so the experience from, knowing what goes on in Toronto can then be sort of passed along to the Vancouver guys to say, okay, here's how you have to structure it. Here's your fixtures, or here's what you need to administer it well. And then Alberta kind of, because Calgary is about a 10-hour drive to Vancouver. So the Alberta guys between Edmonton and Calgary do a lot of kind of challenge matches. They're 2.5 hours. Okay. I mean, the theme you're probably getting from, talking to us and many other clubs around the world is there's a dedication to travel for games.
Yeah.
So whether it's, 4.5 hours down the road for a day, or it's like, I mean, Dermot wasn't kidding when it was like a 14-hour drive to Halifax. Like people did that. I mean, some flew, but some did drive for a one-day tournament. And then, and I know in Asia and Europe, they will all fly in for a 1 or 2 day tournament. So it's the same thing. So there's a lot of dedication that way. And then there's sort of, from Alberta, you kind of jump over to Toronto, Ottawa and Ontario. And then just the other Eastern clubs that Dermot mentioned. Yeah,
it's still the only country in the world where I've ever driven through time zones physically. I've never done that in my life. When it's a long story, but I ended up driving through time zone in Western Canada, and I was so confused at where I was, and it was just it's a bit mental. Yeah, it's so big. I don't think the Irish realize how big it actually is till they probably get there. Yeah.
Well, even just on that, like when we're trying to schedule, say, a Canada GAA meeting or like a officer training webinar or something like that, we have to pick a day and time that accommodates 4 we actually have 4 time zones to consider it. So we always have to be careful of, okay, well, how long is the meeting going to be? We can't do it on a weeknight. It has to be on a weekend because we've got, from Vancouver to PEI time zones.
Jeez. Okay. Yeah. I did forget about that kind of thing. Yeah. That's it is. I get the sense of how big it is. Dermot probably knows an Irishman landing in the water going, geez, how big is this place? Coming from Galway. So it's
a bit bigger than heading out to Connemara.
Yeah, and lads complain about having to drive 25 minutes to train, and then you're driving 14 hours to a match. So, what's the future then, Dermot, for the men's side in Ottawa Gaels?
Hopefully it's bright now. I think there's that hunger at being deprived of games last year with COVID. There's definitely just been out for the kick around on a Sunday night. There was 12 lads out there on Sunday. It was 6v6, but we've about 15 to 20 lads that could be out. So we'd hope to get a few more out in the next little while. And just like Kerry's young lad Ryan is away at university and partly, so they'll be away for stuff during the year. But hopefully when they're back in the spring and summer, you get those young lads out, and you can kind of build. And that's it. We have a few lads that are just even recently coming out. There's a lad from Cavan, Kieran. There's actually 2 Cavan lads, 2 gingers. There's Kieran and Brendan. Brendan works with me down at the school. He's a primary teacher as well. There's 1 or 2 Cork lads. Brian's been here a few years, and I think there's 1 or 2 other lads. Shane has been with us for a few years from Mayo, and he was excited there because there's another Mayo lad in town, Fergal, if he sticks around. So, and then young just local lads. Is one of the lads, Liam, from up Carleton Place, I think of Irish heritage. And he was ploughing through on Sunday night. He's a big, strong lad, and he's only been playing the game a few months. And so we get people like Liam, people like Andrew, who are local lads. So if we can just keep that mix of local and 1 or 2 new lads coming in, the hope would be that we can get more games. Usually Montreal host a tournament and have done for years and years in May. So touch wood that COVID kind of stays fairly under control, and we can have a relatively regular summer next year, and just have games and have something really for the young lads coming through. Like, it is lovely to see Ryan being able to come in and play, and I think my lads are turning 13 and 10 next month, and I'd love to be able to pull on the pair of boots and with one of them one day and just play together, and whether it's a bit of training, a bit of rec as Kerry mentions, or whether it's in one of the tournaments. So so I think the future is bright. There's a great community there. Kerry will probably mention it too with the ladies, but I mentioned Jarlath Connaughton in passing earlier, having helped out with the men, and he's integral with the women as well, and was very involved with the CYC. He was one of the founding members of the CYC, and Jarlath was a Dublin man, a former Garda Síochána, but he kind of epitomizes the sense of community over here, and his passing really had a big impact on people. He passed quite suddenly in June after a short illness, and so we'll have a memorial for him on Saturday afternoon, and I think there'll be 110 people in the Heart Crown for that, and quite a few of them will be affiliated with the Gaels in some way or another. But I think what Jarlath's passing shows is just that sense of community, and I think that's probably in your conversations with other clubs. That's what the GAA is about. It's about the on-field stuff. It's about the bit of football or the bit of hurling or camogie or whatever it is, but it's also about keeping that connection with home, through meeting people from home, but also building a new community. So whether it's the local parish back home, or whether this is our parish, I suppose, in Ottawa. And in good times you have your celebrations, you have your christenings, and you have your weddings, and you have your birthdays, but then in tough times too, and sad times when people pass, the community comes together. And I think that's one of the things that I've come to appreciate over the years, 16 years here now. And there's been a lot of ups and there's been a few downs, but at the end of it, I know there's a core community there that if ever I did need a hand, or they can come and just give each other a dig out and a support. It's a shoulder to lean on. Sometimes it's just a bit of a we're going through the same thing, and we're all in it together.
Yeah, the real GAA, as they call it.
Yeah.
And then on the women's side, Kerry, are you in the similar boat in terms of hope?
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's lots of things about it, and just in terms of kind of the future and things that galvanize the club on both men's and women's would be things like the World Games. So 2016, I participated on the non-Irish team because I wasn't born in Ireland. So, so we had, and the Ottawa Gaels were very well represented on that team. I think there was, something like 13 out of the 15 were from the Ottawa Gaels on that team. Nice. And so so that was really good and a great experience, and it really galvanizes and it gets more people out. And 2019 was the same thing, and so we have 2023 now is the next ones to look forward to, and so that will give. So I've sort of planted the seed with my son to say, well, this is what you should be, you should be gunning for, is to try and get a place on this team. So it gives them something to look towards, something big like that. And then I mentioned about camogie. So we, some of the ladies over the years have, kind of pucked around, and then we just sort of thought, we have enough interest here within, enough ladies that really want to do it. So let's really just, start. And so we, applied for a DFA GAA grant, and we got a grant to kind of get the program off the ground last October. So we did that, we advertised it, and have had training all through the winter as much as we could. It was a little bit on and off with COVID. And then in Quebec City there in September, beginning of September, we had our first Ottawa Gaels team play. And so, that's exciting. And so, 2022 is bright for that. Many of our players are dual players, but there's some who just, simply are drawn because they like camogie, and so are out just for that. So that's really exciting. And then even just from a youth perspective, there's hope and talk about trying to take an Ottawa Gaels team to the Fela next year. So we're just kind of waiting on details of that. And it's going to be, it's Noel's, one of Noel's, he has 4 kids. So, so one of them, I can't remember which age, but anyway, and trying to get some of those youth, again, it's something to look forward to. So they have the Continental Youth Championship, maybe some will get to the Fela, and then down the road, some of the kids that have gone to the CYC are now looking towards going to the World Games down the road. So it really just gives them something to strive for, and that we can support. And, we're all, we've been involved in it. We've done it ourselves. And even dating back, a lot of our team members, like talking about Breda, there was international visits and this international senior competition dating back to like 96, 98, 2000. I went to my first international competition in 2002. So that was sort of the predecessor of the World Games. And then it just sort of, didn't happen. Last time that happened was 2005. And then it was sort of reignited in 2015 when they went to the Middle East.
Nice. That sounds amazing. Yeah. You'll have to tell, you tell Canadian GAA to tell the GAA that I would like to be involved with the World Games somewhere as a commentator or anything.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so,
okay. Well, we'll keep in touch on that then.
I'm more than available. I can be there at the drop of a hat. So
yeah, it really is an exciting time, and especially and probably maybe even more so for Irish people to kind of go there, and you have all these people on the sideline. You listen, like Dermot was talking about. There was many language. There was a team from Oman. There was like the South African team.
I've talked to them. Yeah.
Right. Like it just it's so. But to see it in action. Yeah. And to see that all of these people are not Irish, but they love your game and they love your sport and they love your culture. It really is a compliment, really, in the highest regard, I think.
Yeah, it kind of, I suppose it's funny that when you mention the World Games, like hello, Siri.
Sorry, that was my Siri thought I was talking to Siri.
Hello, Siri. Like this whole idea of the GAA Global thing started from the World Games. I kind of was reading an article, like I always tell the story, the guys ask me, where'd you get the idea from? I was reading an article sitting on the bus going from Chernobyl back to Kiev about the World Games, and that's where this idea came from. Like, so it's the most international, idea I've ever had, and in a different place to Ireland as well, and it kind of spurned from that. So yeah, it's funny you mentioned Oman and South Africa and all them. Like, the clubs that I won't say uncovered because they obviously existed, but the clubs that I had no idea. I thought I knew them pretty well from traveling to like 80, 90, 100 countries, but there's so many that I've never heard in my life. But it sounds really good. I'm excited for the World Games myself. I heard it was potentially happening in 2023. So all going well, that'd be fantastic. There's a kind of, I've called it a quickfire round for the past 60, 70 episodes, but realistically it's not quickfire at all. But there's a few kind of fun questions, and there's a few Canadian themed ones for you guys as well if you're interested in having a go with them. Either of you could answer, I suppose. If I go alternatively, maybe I'll start with Dermot then. That's my first one. Dermot, on the men's side, there is every Irish GAA club and every club in the world has to have the stereotypical Irish Toughnut. Who is the Toughnut at Ottawa Gaels?
Oh, that's a good one. I suppose historically he doesn't play with us anymore, but I'll say Mickey Delaney. Mickey is a pugilist. He's a boxer, and I played with us for a number of years, and he still tries to come up. He's a few hours down the road now, I think, in Belleville, and he's involved now with Kingston. It's actually a very new club, and he's involved with Kingston. But Mickey would be a fiery redhead and well able to go.
Good stuff. Yeah. Is there one on the ladies' side, Kerry?
Yeah, I might actually even say two. So the first one comes to mind is Breda. So, the heart and soul of the ladies team and program and the club.
She seems like a legend, whoever she is.
Yeah, she really is. And well, wait till you hear this. So in 2008, which was the last time we won the league and the championship, unfortunately, Breda was going through breast cancer treatment. So she had done 4 rounds of chemo. She had no hair. She wore a scarf, and she traveled down to Toronto, and she played in that final. And and they won. And it was one of the most emotional things and experiences. Wow. Yeah. Like, talk about hard, that's hard, and that's committed. Yeah. And, and it was good for her. Like, it gave her something else, right? She was going through a very, very difficult time. And, she just was not going to miss that chance, and, and ended up winning the game, which was sort of icing on the cake.
That's an incredible story. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
And the other one I think of is Lisa Langevin, she's currently our chairperson. She's been the chairperson in the past, but she's currently chair. And she's probably, because she's longer than me now, so she's probably the longest late time playing. So she's probably 25 years now. So she started when she was 18 or 19, and she worked at the Heart and Crown. And Pat she put herself through law school. So Pat used to just pick her up, take her to training and, whatever, that's where they had met. But put herself through law school. She's a partner in a law firm now, incredibly successful, and, two girls of her own. But she played up until she was 6 months pregnant with one of the pregnancies. So she had to make sure she had a baggy shirt. And then another time, just in the last sort of 2-3 years, it was post World Games, I can't remember, but anyway, she had fractured a fracture on her wrist, like maybe a hairline fracture. So she was sort of playing with it wrapped up. So you could kind of just see her, kind of favoring one hand. So then she goes up with her hand, the ball hits, her finger pops out. So Greg actually runs on, pops the finger back in, tapes it up, and she keeps going.
So she played with half a hand out of 2 hands, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah,
they definitely fall into the category of tough nuts anyway. That's for sure. This for either of you, I suppose. Is there a club karaoke song of choice?
For the men, it would be Saw Doctors, a bit like Mayo, to win just once. And so we did in 2016. So, but we give the old Saw Doctors a bit of a blast, all right? Yeah.
Stuff, yeah. Any on the women's side, Kerry?
Nothing that really pops out. But...
That's all right. That's okay. Yep. Yeah. Dermot to go first. Are you the Marty Party or the Des Cahill fan club?
Marty Party. We almost a bit of both. I love Marty. A few of us were down in New York for the New York Mayo game pre-COVID. There was 4 of us down, and Marty was down in Times Square, so we got to see Marty in the flesh. It was very exciting.
Okay, good. Yeah, Kerry, you either or?
Yeah, I guess I'd say Marty, and that's because I've seen a couple of All Ireland finals I've gone to. I've sort of seen him buzzing around outside the stadium, and bright lights, full makeup.
Yeah, that sounds like Marty, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kerry, if I stick with you then on the ladies' side, the toughest team the ladies have come up against.
I'd probably say St. Mike's in Toronto. Yeah.
Okay.
And they've, especially as of late, they took over. They're winning league championship for the last 10 years. Yeah.
Okay. St. Mike's. And is it the same, Dermot, for the lads, or?
Yeah. Like more recently, locally with the Eastern Division, obviously Montreal would be the nemesis of late, but certainly just, and I think back to my early few years here, just some of the teams that we come up against, Mike's would have been very strong. Yeah. So.
Okay. You can bring the lads' side, Dermot, to Ireland to take on any county. Who are you taking on?
Ooh.
You can't take on Galway right now because you're already wearing maroon. So.
Is this who would we like to take on, or who do we think we might have a shot at?
Well, I asked the question and I tend to get both answers sometimes. Like the NYPD, Mike from the NYPD GAA came on and just straight out said, if we want to win, we're playing Longford, but otherwise I want to play somebody else.
Yeah. I know one of the lads actually just over now the last year or so is Joe from Offaly. And he's a big Offaly fan, so he's always telling us how great Offaly is. And I know they're kind of in a bit of resurgence at the minute.
Yeah,
So I think playing Offaly or even Carlow, who kind of smaller, less successful in recent years, but the likes of Carlow and Offaly have been coming on. I think they've been in a lot of development. So a team like that would be fun to do, even the likes of Wicklow.
Okay, hopefully Carlow, Wicklow. Kerry, who are the ladies taking on?
Well, I'd probably just say Antrim because I might have some connections there to make it happen.
That's good. Antrim, Wicklow, Carlow, and Offaly. Okay, they're quite the
maybe even Leitrim as well, Jason. I might throw in Leitrim. Leitrim would be a smaller county in the west of Ireland. Wouldn't be as far to go from Galway. Go down then and maybe.
I thought with a Leitrim footballer last year, now he'd be very offended by that one. So
well, no, they'd be still decent, but yeah, be a good night out up in Carrick and Shan.
Yeah, you'd go down to Mohill then after, of course. Yeah. Are you more, as a club, would you say you're more short pass or drive it long?
I'd say just in the nine-a-side or the Eastern Division, be more nine-a-side. When we're down to Toronto, you play 15s, but just with regards to field availability and things like that, and even numbers. So the last number of years would be nine-a-side games, so it's very much a running game. So you would have a little bit of long passing, but it would be a lot of hand passing, a lot of retention of possession going that way. It would really do the whole going back and across, but it would be very very fast game. And I would say anyway on the men's side, more hand passing than kicking.
Great. Same with the ladies' carrier.
Yeah, I think it depends what we're playing. Yeah. So in the Eastern Division, we're playing nine-a-side, and in the Toronto Division, we're playing 15. So yeah, just adjust it based on who we're playing and what pitch size.
Cool. Yeah. You have a choice between the famous four in GAA. Kerry, you can choose hats, flags, scarves, or headbands.
I like scarves.
Scarf, okay. And Dermot?
Always a big man for the headbands.
Yeah, it's Galway. I just associate.
Galway always love the head. You could wrap it around the wrist. You could put it around the head. You could do lots with it. You could just throw it around.
Perfect. Yeah. Dermot, if I start with you in this one, then have you done the job of introducing Father Ted to the Canadian world? And is there a favorite moment or episode?
I'd say quite a few of the Gaels would know anyway. And then my wife Emily, French Canadian, she wouldn't have known Father Ted, but we enjoyed. Going back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. I think one that stands out for me is the Dougal on the rollerblades. That was a very good one. Enjoy that.
One. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good. Yeah. Kerry, have you a favorite or have you seen much of it?
I wouldn't have watched much of it. Yeah.
Okay, that's part of your homework. So before the World Games, you have to watch 23 episodes of Father Ted. Yeah,
I have to be able to quote episodes. Yeah. Did you see that one?
There's plenty of quotes going around yet. What have I got? This one kind of puts people on the spot a little bit, but you can have a think about it. Dermot or Kerry, whichever wants to go first. The greatest GAA player you've ever seen in your lifetime or ever watched on TV or seen live? Should be guessing yours now, Dermot. If I wrote down 2 or 3 names, I reckon I'd guess who yours might be.
Like Pádraig Joyce. You think to the Galway teams that won the All Ireland. So Pádraig Joyce, Michael Donlan. I think Michael Donlan, just the engine on him, just phenomenal player. For Tyrone, Peter Canavan, I was at the All Ireland semi-final in '95 when Tyrone beat Galway just by a point or two. I think it was. Dubs went on, I think, and bet Tyrone in the final, but Galway, a lot of people, I think, for Galway were very close. They should have won that game, but I suppose I'm a bit biased, but they were very close. But Peter Canavan, just a master, just what he could do and just how he could get out of tight spaces. And, so I always a big Peter Canavan fan. I wouldn't be a big Tyrone fan now, mind you, but Canavan, I just remember someone beside me in the stand. If anyone Canavan, and he sure could. He could do it from anywhere on the pitch. So I just in his tenacity and the amount of abuse he took, how hard he was, and just even the skill level. He'd be definitely in the top 5.
Brilliant, yeah. And of course, the Son of God has now come true. Dara, his son, is now
exactly.
The next generation, And is there one, Kerry, anyone that you would pick?
Oh, I just think maybe from the ladies, I'd say Cora Staunton.
Yeah, she's kind of underappreciated in some of the clubs I've asked. Some of them they're picking. Some of them hadn't heard of her, which I thought was a bit mad. But she's definitely the top. Top
just so athletic, so hard.
Yeah, she's incredible. The Canadian themed ones, then, they are half of them are the same that I asked Patrick over in St. Finian's in Vancouver. They're not graded, don't worry. These are just completely stupid 50-50 choice ones. And then I have a few extra because I was kind of waiting to get to this side of Canada at some point because for a music reason, two of my favorite music people or groups are your side of the world. So if I go first, Kerry, if you can go to Banff National Park or the beautiful Stairway to Heaven walk in Ireland. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not, but I grew up in Calgary right beside Banff, and Banff is breathtakingly beautiful. And whenever my relations would come over from Ireland, we always went there, and it stunned them as much as it stuns me.
Yeah, I love Banff as well.
Yeah.
Dermot, would you know the Stairway to Heaven, the walk up in Fermanagh?
You know what? I wouldn't. No, I haven't heard of it. No.
That's one to Google anyway. So the Quilca Mountains, beautiful place. I haven't walked
it
yet.
Give that.
Too far for me now, but it's a long walk. I don't like walking. Dermot, I'll probably ask you this one first. Maple syrup or Heinz ketchup?
Maple syrup. I have a sweet tooth. I love ketchup, but I'd go for the syrup.
Yeah, so would I. And Kerry, have you a preference?
I'm more the savory, so ketchup for me.
Okay, that's interesting. Dermot, Ryan Reynolds or the great Kerry man Michael Fassbender?
Can I say neither? I go Ryan Reynolds. Whatever I've seen him in, haven't seen much of Fassbender, but I'll go Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, good stuff. Kerry, have you a preference?
Yeah, I'll go with Ryan. He's quite a character. He's a pretty funny guy.
Yeah, absolutely love him. Kerry, Niagara Falls or one of Ireland's great waterfalls / streams, Powerscourt Waterfall in County Wicklow?
I have been to both. So depends what you're looking for, but yeah, Niagara Falls is probably more spectacular, I'd say.
Powerscourt is verging on a stream just falling off a hill. So
yeah, it is high. I mean, you have to look up high, but
well, after you go to Niagara Falls or Angel Falls, like down South America, it's pretty much a trickle out of a tap. So Dermot, have you a preference for either or?
I've been to both as well. Niagara Falls definitely spectacular. Bit gaudy though, I found a bit tacky.
Yeah, that's what I was.
So maybe Powerscourt a bit more wholesome, even though it might be just a trickle. A bit more, maybe a bit more natural.
Okay, good stuff.
It's a nicer walk in.
I'll give it that much. Yeah, it definitely is. Dermot, Alanis Morissette or Imelda May?
Ooh, I like Imelda a little bit, but I think Alanis over the years, Jagged Little Pill always be a classic. So I'd go Alanis.
Yeah, good choice. Yep. Kerry, what about you?
Yeah, I'd probably say Alanis too.
Yeah, good choice. Yeah, if you answered Imelda May, that was the wrong answer to that question.
Okay.
And there's a very, very correct answer to this one. You can choose between one of the greatest bands of all time, Arcade Fire, or U2, who nobody really likes anyway.
And I've seen both of those bands in concert.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, but I have to go with U2, I'm afraid.
Oh no. I'm hanging up.
That's two. That's two for two. U2. Yeah, Bono. Gotta love Bono and platform shoes.
Just when I thought I could fall in love with another club who wears maroon and white, you went and did that.
No. Well, we gave Canada the maple syrup, you see, so you can't be giving Canada everything. You have to give Ireland something. Yeah, U2 are a good export.
Yeah, but you don't realize how good Arcade Fire are. When's the last time you saw 18 people on a stage in perfect?
Well, it's true.
They're impressive. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that one on the chin. And then the last one I have, which I have to thank Kerry for explaining this one to me, is Dermot. I'm going to ask you first. The famous curry chips, or you can correct me on this, poutine or poutine. I can't remember which way you told me.
Poutine.
Yeah. Sounds like poutine, to be honest. I feel like
poutine. A little bit different to poutine. You wouldn't get the same buzz. But
what is poutine then?
So poutine is chips or fries, as they'd say over here, but chips with kind of a gravy and cheese curds. Cheese curds are these kind of squeaky lumps of cheese on top.
Like halloumi, is it?
Kind of, but not quite. A little bit different. Yeah. So
the curry cheese chips at 3 a.m, basically, in an Irish nightclub.
That's what it is. Yes.
Okay. Kind of.
Except gravy instead of curry.
Gravy instead of curry. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd be one of the few Irish people that wouldn't be mad on curry chips. I never liked curry, so I'd never have a curry chip. So poutine would float my boat. I'd go for the poutine.
Okay. And Kerry, you've the last word on this one.
Yeah, it would depend if it was good poutine, which meant that, the cheese went on, the gravy was hot enough to melt the cheese, that it was a, right proportion of it. But I am a big fan of curry chips. So
I know it's a 11:15 at night, but I'm absolutely starving after hearing that. So
You're after the curry chip. You're after the chip ray for curry chip.
I'd be more tempted to get a flight to Ottawa to find out a bit of
you tried the
poutine, to be honest.
poutine?
Yeah, I'd love a taste of it. Yeah.
yeah.
Is there anything else the listeners should know about Ottawa Gaels before I let you guys go? Is there anything else that we've missed out on? No.
No, I think that's pretty comprehensive. Yeah. No, it's like a lot of the clubs you chat to. It's a lot of the clubs. It's Irish people keeping it going, and then the locals get on board and discover a sport they love, and then they get into a community. So yeah, it's just great that we have a club here that people over the last 40 plus years have kept it going. So here's to another 40 years all going well.
Yeah. Actually, there is one. Especially now that the maroon and white course, I'm instantly drawn to it. But where can people who buy jerseys and gear and love their GAA gear, where can they get your stuff, Kerry?
Yeah, it's just on the O'Neill's website.
O'Neill's
on our store. Just look up Ottawa Gaels and you can order whatever you like off there. So yeah. And I was going to say, like, one thing, my involvement is a great thing for me because all of my relatives still live in Ireland. So my mom and dad were the only ones that left, and half of my family is very involved in the GAA. The other half isn't, but half of my relations. And so it's a really great connection point for me. A cousin of mine plays for Rory Ogue in Cushendall, and he plays for Antrim, big hurling family, and his uncles, the Cambridges, are probably, known in Antrim hurling. And so it's really something, that we've been able to connect with, and my kids, and my cousin's kids, have a connection that way. And so it's something really nice across the water that we can still be really very connected with our culture and our family that way.
That's super, yeah. Is there anyone, Dermot, you want to give a shout out to back in Ireland or elsewhere around the world before I let you guys go?
Sure, yeah. I've got all, like Kerry's mentioned, and a lot of her family's back home, so all my family to be back home. So so mum and dad would be in Galway, and my brother Morris at Wright. Patrick would be in Galway as well, and Knocknacarra. My auntie Mary would be a big GAA fan. She's down in Cork. Uncle Benny down in Boston, like a lot of Irish, a couple of uncles down there, Patrick and Benny. So Benny, we'd stay in touch. So he wears the Galway colours with pride. So just anyone else who knows me, any friends, like that. But
what's the surname in the club? What's your surname?
Mine's Dermot Gannan.
Okay, very good. I must say, because I work with a few Galway teachers as well. I work with an Athenry teacher and a few up the Ard. I know that's slightly the other way, but that's good to know as well. Yeah, deadly. And Uncle Benny somewhere, Boston, is that what you said?
Boston, yeah. And he was sick there as well back around the same time that Jarlath was diagnosed, and thankfully Benny came through there. He's got a positive diagnosis, so we went through some serious treatment. So it's great that he's on the mend, and there's talk maybe he might get back home to Ireland next summer for a visit. So we might hopefully see him next year. So great that he's doing well, and that's it. He'll wear the Galway jersey, and he'll keep in touch with how things are going. So
super.
Yeah,
come on, Uncle Benny, for play to you. Yes. And Kerry, is there anyone on your end?
Yeah, I guess I'd probably say the McCambridges and Cushendall. My first cousin is Sharon McCambridge, and all of them, and and even Pat Kelly and the founders, and Breda Kelly, and the ones that started this all out, that have given us a sport and a home and a community to be part of while we're here, and something for our kids as well. So good for them for getting it going, and we'll hopefully carry the torch and continue it on for many years.
Yeah, super. Guys, thank you so much. I'm sorry I've probably taken up half your evening there, but I would stay chatting forever. It's been amazing having both of you on, and thanks so much for telling us all about Ottawa Gaels and Canada GAA, and all things going well. Hopefully we might see you guys in 2023 if I don't get to Canada before that. But thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for your interest, and thanks for your time, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Not at all.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jason. Yeah, and best of luck with the podcast. And hopefully you go strength to strength, and we'll make it a date for 2023.
Yep. I wouldn't mind being in Canada before that, but if not, I'll see you there for sure.
Good man.
Good.
Thanks a million, guys. I'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.
Coming up the next day on the Loaf of Bread GAA Global, we cut into our next slice.
the first match against Cologne, we lost by 1 point, which which really sucks. But so yeah, we lost by 1 point, and then we played Stuttgart, which went much better for us, and we won that match. And we ended up in the finals against Cologne again. And this time, I think we were a bit more tired than Cologne. And I don't know how we lost in the end, but we lost by quite a margin. So wasn't as successful as the first 2 matches.
Yeah, you're a proper GA man. You've already got good excuses. That's every GA has to have good excuses. Yeah.
On Slice 46, it's a very special one as I chat to Jakob and Charlotte, aka Lottie, both of whom are members of the first ever all-German GAA club, Darmstadt GAA. I find out about Jakob living in Carlow and learning the game from a 10-year-old, games against other German teams, Lottie playing in her first camogie tournament, how the famous Germans loving their rules went very against him in hurling, training at the university, the club playlist, a member from Ireland named Ted, the might of neighbouring Belgium, and much more. That's next Thursday from 9 AM as we continue the journey with 2 slices a week. I'll see you at the arrivals hall, but until then, check out the various clubs on the Instagram page and see all the amazing work they do and some of the nicest GA gear going. Find the podcast on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter and on TikTok. Email loafofbreadpod@gmail.com or just simply hit the follow button and spread the word of the Loaf of Bread GA pod across the globe. Slánigi.